From Rixie, this is Frameform, a podcast discussing movies, moving, and everything in between. I'm Hannah Weber.
I'm Jen Ray.
And I'm Claire Schweitzer. And we are three dance film nerds who can't wait to take you on a deep dive into the crazy, complex, and exciting world at the intersection of dance and film.
Over the next few months, we'll be delving into topics, trends, and issues in dance, film, and culture at large.
We will also be sharing conversations with creators in the field, what inspires them, and the challenges they face when making their work.
Always relevant,
fresh each week,
and on demand.
Frameform, the sixth podcast from Rixie, premiering August 12th. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From Rixie, this is Debuff, and I'm your host, Steve Skeels. Today I'll be talking about the recent PlayStation State of Play, the Aeon Must Die controversy, the exclusive Spider-Man in Marvels Avengers, Rocksteady's Suicide Squad announcement, and Project XCloud for Android. On August 6th, PlayStation held another State of Play that mostly covered PlayStation 4 and PSVR titles, but there was a bit of PlayStation 5 news tossed in. Sony had straight up said that there wouldn't be any big announcements, and unfortunately there are still people hating on this presentation they had. I know we want every showing to be huge, but that can't always happen, and it's obvious that they kept most of their big announcements for that PlayStation 5 reveal. But still, I felt like they showed a lot. There were some smaller titles I hadn't seen before, and they went into detail on games we already know about, so I don't personally see the problem. I do also want to note that this presentation felt even more like a Nintendo Direct in terms of the quality and the feel of the presentation, and a lot more than some of the more recent shows have, so I'm all for it. I like this direction they're going in when they're showing off just some smaller game trailers. They opened up the presentation with some Crash Bandicoot 4, and we actually got a lot more detail on the game. New masks, platforming abilities, details on the other playable characters, and a brand new challenge mode that looks like a nice spin on the gameplay. I think it looks great. The next game that I'm really interested in is Pathless, a new game from the people who made Abzu, which had several of the people from the Journey team. I don't quite understand how it plays yet, but it looks really gorgeous, and I'm sure it'll be a wonderful game. Then we got another trailer for Genshin Impact, which is coming to PS4 first this fall. This is one that I'm really interested in, and definitely want to talk about more in the future. It originally got praised for looking like an anime Breath of the Wild, but recently had been taking some heat for going free-to-play with microtransactions. So take what you will from that. There were a couple of games that I thought looked really cool, Aeon Must Die and Anno Mutationum. I don't know how to say that. But both look like pretty cool side-scrolling beat-em-ups. They're very different from one another, and I always like seeing these types of games, so I was excited to see two back-to-back. We'll talk a bit more about Aeon later, but let's just say I hope you're more interested in the Anno game. One of the probably bigger announcements for some people is the Control DLC they showed. I have yet to play Control, but I've only heard good things, and I'm sure many are excited to see that this will connect the game to Alan Wake. Creative director Sam Lake said that they've been planning to do a Remedy connected universe, and this is the start of it. On the VR side, we just got a look at Vader Immortal, and the announcement that Hitman 3 will also be able to be played in VR, which I think looks really cool. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I think people should be pretty excited to be able to go and hunt people down in first-person virtual reality. They closed out the show with some pretty good PlayStation 5 reveals, or rather, gameplay and one reveal. Bugsnax showed off what it's all about finally, so I can understand what the heck that game is. Temtem, the new monster collecting RPG, was shown off. We got an in-depth look at Godfall, which I'm very excited about. And then they announced a new game titled Hood, Outlaws and Legends. The biggest thing was probably the Godfall gameplay, which I think a lot of people have been looking forward to. Described as a looter slasher, this looks like an action RPG where loot will be the focus. They showed off multiple weapon types and suits of armor that you can equip, that sound like they'll combine to determine your class, basically, or at least how you play. I don't know exactly what the armor does, but it's clear that the weapon type is basically how you get your combos, as one would probably expect. The combat looks weighty, but fast, like you would probably want an action RPG to feel. I think it looks pretty great. I'm also digging the overall aesthetic as well. The world and style of it looks like it will make for an interesting setting, and I'm excited to see something new. My only issue is that it still looks a little bit janky. I said I think the combat looks good, but some parts of it, and really the movement as a whole, looks a bit off. I don't know if it was just the person playing it for this demo. Maybe it'll be polished up before release, but I do have to point that out. Other than that, the only true big reveal I would say is this game Hood, Outlaws and Legends. Not exactly sure what it is yet since it was just a cinematic, but it does appear to be some kind of objective-based hero game. At least in the trailer, it looks like just two teams going after the same objective, which ends in them fighting. It's reminding me a bit of For Honor, but maybe it will have more of a mix of PvE in the objectives. We'll have to see. Like I said at the beginning, I did think this was a good presentation. I was fine with the focus on the PlayStation 4, and I know we don't have a lot more games coming out, since we're still waiting for the next-gen consoles. So I'm happy to see more details on what they've got coming up, and a couple of the PlayStation 5 titles we should be getting excited about. But just go look at the trailers you're interested in. Don't waste your time watching the whole presentation. Next up is Aeon Must Die. I said we'd talk about it a bit more, and I want to get into the accusations against the developing studio Limestone Games. Pretty much right after the State of Play, people went and saw a trailer that was uploaded with a description claiming that this trailer was made with abuse, manipulation, and theft, along with a Dropbox that contains multiple documents detailing the case. A newly created Limestone Games Twitter account also posted the same thing. The documents in the Dropbox are organized very well and are clearly the basis for a court case. Some of the information is redacted, presumably to remove personal data, as well as to not get the employees in trouble for libel or slander. They want to save some of that for the courts and not divulge it to the public. Honestly, I hate to boil something like this down, but there's just too much information there, and if you're really interested in this, then I would say go and read through all these documents. They're available for everybody to see for a reason. But the basic summary of their introductory page is basically that the employees at Limestone Games were under, quote, unbearable work conditions with endless crunch, harassment, abuse, corruption, and manipulation, end quote. And that's literally everything you wouldn't want at your job. They also found out that the company and IP was taken from the founder. Prior to the trailer being shown at the State of Play, this had all led to the team leaving the studio, including their founder/creative director. After leaving, they had reached out to the publisher, Focus, for help, who basically moved the information through their company too slowly to do much of anything about it, and they had hardly responded to the team. They did ensure the former team that there was no reason to delay the reveal of the game, and that being in the State of Play was a big opportunity to push the game for them. It seemed like they didn't really understand the issue, even though the trailer to be revealed was technically infringing on the people who worked on it, as they had no contract and did not receive payment for their creation. And that could probably get a lot of people in trouble. In the end, this is all just a terrible situation, and I do hope the team sees justice for their work. The games industry can be brutal, and I think we're finding more and more cases like this as time goes on. It sucks to see happen to a smaller studio like this, especially since it could have easily been swept under the rug. Had they not shown it off at the State of Play, I don't know that many people would be picking this up as easily. They were forced to wait till a good moment to show this off, and I'm glad it's getting some attention. Especially because the game looks great too. I hope the founder can get back the IP and finish it up at some point in the future. But I don't really foresee this game coming out when they originally planned. One of the biggest topics this week was on Marvels Avengers and the announced deal with Sony to have an exclusive Spider-Man character added post-launch. Marvels Avengers is going to be a big game. It's hard to say that it's really going to do as well as maybe they expected. It's a huge IP, but the reception of the game has been mixed ever since the first trailer. This past weekend was the first round of the beta, which was only open to PlayStation fans, and the reviews of that are still mixed. I'm seeing some people praise it for sure, but there are also many saying it's nothing special. But I'll see once I play it in the second beta coming this weekend. For now, I just want to talk about Spider-Man. This announcement came at a great time. Right before the first PlayStation exclusive beta, they announced a PlayStation exclusive character. And it's pretty much the biggest superhero Marvel has. So if you plan to pre-order and haven't done it yet, you may as well do it on PlayStation. It's a great decision on Sony's part, and I can't blame Crystal Dynamics for doing it either. Whether or not they paid money for it, if Sony is letting them use Spider-Man, why wouldn't you? That's pretty much what they said in their blog post. I get it, but obviously this sucks for everybody else. This isn't a case of a skin pack or a set of missions exclusive to the game, where if you were to play it on PC or Xbox, and you didn't have those, you just probably wouldn't notice it. But to not have a whole character, and one that's this popular, that just feels like they've basically removed content from the game. Like you'll be playing a lesser version anywhere else, so you really should get it on PlayStation 4 if you can. To me, this feels like taking out a whole class in an RPG or something similar. Again, that's a smart move for Sony, and it probably doesn't matter to Crystal Dynamics too much. I've heard some people say that they won't support the practice and won't buy the game now, but we've got to remember that the general public either won't know that this is happening at all and buy it for whichever platform they want, or it won't be enough to bother them. I also know others who will definitely be getting it for PlayStation now, so I do feel like it's kind of worked out in Sony's favor. The other part of this too is that it doesn't seem like they can make any of the main story have anything to do with Spider-Man now. From what the blog post said and what we know about the Hawkeye DLC, it sounds like new characters will pretty much be taking a sideline and be relegated to their own set of missions. And that's fine. I don't think we'd want them retroactively shoehorned into story scenes, but what story DLC or any kind of Season 2 might they do later on? Who knows, but if something like Thanos comes in, I'd be surprised to not see Spider-Man involved. If they keep all the new free DLC characters as side content, I could see it working out just fine, but if they do start to put them into future story content, it would be very strange to see Spider-Man left out just because he's only on one platform. I don't really like this in general. I'd rather have everyone get the same content, regardless of the preferred box they want to play on, but it's not the first time this has happened for either console, and it definitely won't be the last. According to Imran Khan, an ex-Game Informer editor, Sony has approached all major third-party studios with offers for similar exclusive content. If that works out for them, there may be a lot of core gamers that will go ahead and get every multi-platform game on PlayStation 5. I know I will do the same if every game has a Spider-Man level deal with Sony. So, I guess you should keep that in mind when looking at the next console. There's nothing really confirmed yet, but I have to believe that this is part of their approach to bring people in. Next up, on August 7th, Rocksteady finally revealed what has been one of the worst kept secrets in video games. Their next title is a Suicide Squad game. There were rumors for a while surrounding what they were working on next. Some pointed to it being a Superman game, though this was shot down by the director Sefton Hill in 2018. But over a month ago, there were reports that their next game would be based around the Suicide Squad, due to domains registered like SuicideSquadKillTheJusticeLeague.com and SuicideSquadGame.com. Well, we finally got the announcement, and all it was is a picture of Superman with his back to us and a Suicide Squad logo on his head. So it does seem Superman is involved in some way, so I'm imagining that might have been where the Superman rumors came from. Not really sure on that yet. He'll potentially be the antagonist for the squad in the game, or maybe it's the whole Justice League, as one of the domains might suggest, and Superman is just one of those characters that we'll have to fight against, but we don't know right now. In the comments on Twitter and Reddit, I saw multiple people saying that it might actually be a take on Bizarro, or even Superman under Eclipso's control. We'll have to wait and see. I don't really know what it's going to be. I'd prefer if they just went with a standard Superman as the antagonist. I know some people are getting a bit tired of seeing Superman going evil, whether that's under someone's control or something like Injustice games. But maybe we'll learn more, as they said that more news will be shared at the DC Fandom on August 22nd. But if the Eurogamer report from June is anything to go on, we won't see much of it there since it is still in active development for next-gen consoles. Additionally, there were more rumors that point towards the game following a games-as-service model with co-op components, which makes sense since it's about a group of people teamed up together. It could be cool, though I don't typically like these games-as-a-service style video games like Destiny or Anthem. I'm assuming this is going to be DC's answer to Marvels Avengers, but I can't say that it will work very well for them, especially with the bad taste the Suicide Squad movie left in everyone's mouths. But I have hope that they'll make an interesting game. After all, they made the Arkham games, which are fantastic. And on that note, this announcement also somewhat implies that the rumored Gotham Knights game may be just as real. I'm hoping we will see more about that at the DC Fandom as well. Either way, I'm pretty excited to find out what they're working on next, as it's been 5 years since their last title. So, here's hoping that this is a good one. Our last topic for today is on Microsoft's Project XCloud, coming to Android, and apparently not coming to the iPhone, at least for now. On August 4th, Microsoft and Xbox announced that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will be coming to Android devices on September 15th, bringing over 100 titles to mobile devices through the power of cloud gaming, and at no additional cost to Game Pass subscribers. They plan to make first-party titles from Xbox Game Studios launch day one for xCloud streaming as well, meaning subscribers should be expecting to play Halo Infinite on their phones day one. While I know not everyone will want to do this, it's a nice option, and I'm sure it will be big for many people who don't have a console and want to experience some bigger titles on their phones, whether they have a computer or not. It'll be nice to have these types of games on the go. And nowadays, you can connect some great controllers to your phones, including your preferred console controller, and get a very similar experience to something like the Nintendo Switch. With Game Pass, you can pick up your save on your phone and do a quick mission in Destiny while on a bus or watching TV, provided you have the connection to stream it. And that's the big if there. You're going to have a pretty good connection to stream these types of games, and there was some testing of it early on that showed people said it worked pretty well. I didn't do that myself, so I don't know, but I'm hoping to see that they nail it and the games work pretty well. For a while, people have been streaming games to their phones via Steam Link or similar, so now that Xbox is joining in, I think it's great. And it's the next step to developing the Xbox ecosystem that they're shooting for. Some people hate to admit it, but the mobile gaming market is huge, and it's untapped for these traditional game studios. So being the first to pull that market in will be a big advantage going forward. Unfortunately, it looks like they won't have access to quite a bit of the market, due to Apple rejecting xCloud from coming to their App Store. The official reasoning is due to Apple's strict App Store guidelines. According to Business Insider, since the games are all a part of a single app and would not be submitted individually, this violates Apple's guidelines. Each game has to be submitted for Apple to approve, and the way that the Game Pass and xCloud would work, they're just not going to be able to go through and do that the way that Apple wants. Apparently, this is also why Google Stadia has not been on the App Store yet, outside of the storefront app you can download. I understand this to an extent, but it begs the question why other services don't have to be curated. Something like Netflix. I mean, I get it's movies and not games, but they don't have to curate that at all. And if we do want to talk about games, there are things like Roblox, which is designed to be a platform of user-created games and are certainly not curated by Apple. Not to mention, Roblox has a lot of children on it, so if anything, that's probably a service that you would want to be even more critical of than a subscription service like Microsoft and Xbox's Game Pass. I personally think this is all just because they don't want competition with their new Apple Arcade service, which is a different kind of model in my opinion, so I don't even quite understand their approach. But either way, I'm sorry iPhone users. Hopefully they'll change their mind one day, but for now, you'll just have to get an Android if you want to use Project XCloud. Debuff is hosted by me, Steve Skeels, edited and mixed by Mason Carlton. Follow us on Instagram at DebuffPod. That's DebuffPod. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.